Right. So the learning outcome 2, we're trying to understand the dynamics of leading and managing the equality and diversity in an organization. And we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 objectives to achieve. So we believe that by the end of this lecture, we should be able to determine how to gain commitment to equality and diversity within an organization. We should be able to analyze policies and procedures that need to be in place to promote equality and diversity. We should be able to evaluate methods of communicating commitment, policies, and procedures to relevant organizational stakeholders. We should be able to assess how to address equality and diversity issues. We should be able to analyze methods to review and monitor equality and diversity. And then I will leave as a task for all of us to do our research on how to determine how to reach diverse stakeholder group, how to reach them. That will be a task that will be given to you to have a look at. So we will look at number 1, 2.1, trying to determine how to gain commitment to equality and diversity. Right, so if you look at learning outcome 2.1, if we want to determine how to gain commitment to equality and diversity within an organization, there should be commitment by the organization, which is quite serious, to implement equality and diversity. They have to commit by creating a language and culture of commitment. Some organizations have diversity and equality policy just on paper, but in actual fact, there is no commitment to it. It's just a requirement that they need to meet as an organization, right? So if you want to gain commitment to equality and diversity within any organization, then we should be able to create a language and culture of commitment. And that we should be able to communicate the diversity policy regularly and clearly. In fact, everything that we do in the organization, that will be at the back of our mind as a key policy. And this will actually reflect on the behavior, the actions, and words of those within the organizations. In fact, there are some organizations, once you go in there, you could see that if you're a minority, or if you have got any of their special characteristics, you don't even fit. Because the way they speak about things, the way they communicate, the way they plan their things, you could see that it's more or less exclusion policy, right? So that shouldn't be something that any outsider can find out from the organization that, oh, they are committed to equality and diversity. It shouldn't be by words. In fact, the behavior, action, and words of those within the organization must prove. And the best way to communicate diversity plan to employees and the greater public is through action. They have to see you employing people from different backgrounds, people with different conditions, disability. They have to see it. It should be through action. Now, by practicing what you preach, as we say, you earn the credibility in the eyes of employees and the public. There's no point saying that we have a policy of equality and diversity, when in actual fact, if you come into the organization, you don't see anything like that, right? Number 2, there should be support commitment to equality and diversity. There should be support for that. Employees from the minority group and those with social characteristics should be supported. And this should be seen clearly as being something that is actually happening in the organization. You have to receive support from all angles. Again, there's the importance of showing respect and leading by example, especially management is expected to abide by this policy and uphold the company's commitment to work for diversity. So if management doesn't actually take it serious, how can you gain commitment to equality and diversity within an organization? So it's not about having it on paper, but there should be commitment to make sure that equality and diversity is actually implemented within the organization. Right. So let's look at the next slide. That is straight into 2.2. So the 2.1, you have to expand those points, and if you can read a few journal articles and get some references, that is fine. How do we analyze policies and procedures that need to be in place to promote equality and diversity? Right. analyze policies and procedures. First, you need to know those policies and procedures in place, and you should be able to analyze and see whether it's actually working or not. So, in every organization, the policies and procedures for legal compliance are the equality and diversity policy, which should be in place in the first place. There should be equality scheme and action plan. There should be grievance policy. There should be complaint procedure. There should be staff disciplinary policy and monitoring policy by HR. Right? Now, if these are in place, then you can go ahead and analyze to see whether they are actually working. If you take grievance policy, somebody from the minority, if they push in any grievances, how does it work? Do they actually take it serious? Do you have complaints procedures in place for those who have issues to bring up? What about staff disciplinary policy in terms of people going against the procedure? Is HR doing anything to monitor whether the policy of equality and diversity is actually being implemented? So you can use your own organization in this case as a case study to see if they have these policies in place and to answer if it's actually working or not. So you can use case studies using your own organization. You can also do some research and get some information from journals that will be used to back all that you are saying. Right. Now, let's look at policies and procedures to meet organizational aims and commitment. Policies and procedures to meet organizational aims and commitment. First, there should be policy statement on equality and diversity to all in employment, irrespective of their gender, race, ethnic origin, disability, age, nationality, national origin, sexuality, religion or belief, marital status or social class. Right. Again, the policy purpose, the policy should oppose all forms of unlawful and unfair discrimination. This should be clear. All employees, whether part-time or full-time or temporary, should be treated fairly and equally and with respect. In terms of employment, number one, the selection part of the employment should reflect equality and diversity. When we come to promotion on the job, it should reflect equality and diversity. In terms of training and other benefits, should all be on the basis of aptitude and ability and fairness, so that everybody, irrespective of the condition that the person may have or where the person will come from, irrespective of the race and disability, will have equal chances. All employees will be supported and encouraged to develop their full potential so that there wouldn't be any exclusion where others will be left behind. And the talents and resources of the workforce will be fully utilized to maximize the efficiency of the organization. Page 2.2. Let's look at the next slide. We're trying to evaluate methods of communicating commitment, policies, and procedures to relevant organizational stakeholders. We're trying to evaluate methods of communicating. Right. Number one, the importance of communicating commitment, policies, and procedures are quite keen. Right. We should make it a priority that whatever organization that we use as a case study, they prioritize and they are committed to their policies and procedures in terms of equality and diversity. So that if you use your own organization, you can evaluate it, if it is working or not. Do they give importance to policies on equality and diversity? Are they committed? Do they communicate it to everybody in the organization? What about staff training staff and raising awareness of the staff and all the stakeholders in terms of equality and diversity? Some organizations if it's actually their policy, because they want to make sure that they will be leading and managing change in equality and diversity, it becomes part and parcel of everything that they do. So they train all staff to be aware of the policy so that nobody will go against it in any form. So first thing is the importance of communicating the commitment of the organization to equality and diversity, the policies and procedures. They're fully committed. All staff must be trained and the awareness will be there. Anybody who comes in during the induction, you are shown the equality policies and procedures, and they ensure that all staff understand and they are aware of what to be done. So all stakeholders should be aware of the policy of equality and diversity. Again, you should ensure that suppliers are aware. We're talking about all stakeholders. So even suppliers of the organization must be aware of the commitment, policies and procedures of the organization in terms of equality and diversity so that they'll be able to treat everybody equally. And this will reflect on the way the websites of the organization are designed, the way printers consider accessibility in terms of language that is used on their website, the way they advertise everything, the size of the text that they use even counts, because it's not everybody who can read smaller print. So bold print, clear language, and in terms of how facilities are managed. In fact, facility management is quite key, because if you are an organization and your facilities in terms of access to wheelchair users, the use of lifts and escalators are not put in place, then you are not actually an organization that is trying to communicate your commitment in terms of policies and procedures for equality and diversity for all stakeholders. So we've got the staff. Apart from the staff, we have suppliers. We have to ensure that they all understand the issue of equality and diversity, and the policies are clear to them. And then the commitment of the organization will be very clear in terms of even the way they design their website for every user, irrespective of your abilities, to be able to understand what is on their website and what they do. And in terms of accessibility, look at language so that everybody will be able to read and understand what is there. Even the size of the text is important, and the way the facilities are managed. And in terms of facility management, there should be everything in the facility that will make life easier for people from different race, different culture, different abilities, so that they will all be able to have equal access to your facility. For instance, if you are in an office facility and then people in wheelchair cannot come there, or if the blind are not able to come in there, then it means you are not managing your facilities very well. So even your facility management can depict how serious an organization is in terms of equality and diversity. So if you look at where you work currently, look at the way the facility is managed. Is it user-friendly for people who are blind? Is it user-friendly for people who use wheelchair? Those are all issues that you can look at and then evaluate whether the organization is actually committed to equality and diversity policies and procedures for all stakeholders to benefit. Right? You consider the suitability of the premises access and use. It's everybody, all stakeholders, staff, visitors, service users. Do they all have suitable access to the premises? Use your own workplace as an example. Right? If you're using the hospital, look at the hospital. Is it suitable? Is the premises suitable? You don't have access for everybody can come in. The blind man is coming there. Is it comfortable having access to the hospital? What about wheelchair users? What about people with special needs? Those are all issues that you can evaluate, right? There are methods that you can use to evaluate how they are able to communicate the commitment, policies, and procedure to all relevant stakeholders that the organization may have, right? How do you assess the quality and diversity issue? How to assess how to address equality and diversity issue? How do you address it in your own organization as an employee? How do you address? Now, if you want to address the issue of equality and diversity, number one, you need to be able to identify the issues. And what issues are we trying to identify? We want to assess how we address equality and diversity issues. Now, if you want to assess it, whether they implement the policy, whether it is working, you first need to identify issues. Number one, you need to identify prejudices or discrimination. This is something that you can find out easily. Individual. Sometimes those prejudices and discrimination are done on individual level. It could be individual staff level, it could be management level, it's still individual. But sometimes there are corporate organizational discrimination, where certain organizations ensure that the minority or people with special needs or any other features are not able to join. That is organizational. So you need to, if you want to assess how to address equality and diversity, number one, identify all the issues involved. Look at the individual prejudice and discrimination, and then on the organizational level, try to identify whether there are organizational discrimination. It does happen, right? There have been a lot of talk about how the minority are more or less squeezed out of the police force in England. Well, so much research has gone into that. And black police chief have been interviewed. And he himself said that it was quite difficult at the time he joined the force because he was the only black officer in the police force. So sometimes it could be organizational. But then within the organization, there are individuals who also do that. So there's a need for you to identify all the issues. And then you try to address the language being used in the organization. Language is something that can easily identify an organization to see whether they are trying to address the issue of equality or diversity. So language is number one. Apart from language, the actions and behaviors of those involved, sometimes you could see that they do not support equality and diversity. So in that sense, you could see that it's just all on paper. And people begin to doubt whether it is just to satisfy what I can say, political correctness, to have those policies in place, or they really want to do what? Implement it. And then dealing with conflicts, to look at conflict between individuals, between the law and organizational aims. Sometimes you could see that the organizational aims actually conflict with what? Law. So dealing with conflict between individuals, and then between law and organizational aims, between law, organizational aims, and religious or cultural issues. These are all issues that you can come out clearly and see that no, this organization does not address equality and diversity. There are many organizations where you cannot put where the baker, the Muslim baker. No, you can't. So you could see that between organizational law and organizational aims and religious or cultural issues, clearly identify that these people are not actually addressing the issue of equality and diversity. You can see it, right? I think 10 years ago, it was all over where an air hostess has to wear the cross, and she was dismissed. Now, in that sense, are we trying to address the issue of equality and diversity? No, that is the person's religion. Right, so those are all issues that you could see that It's more or less organizational issue. So apart from the individual issues, there are organizational issues. You should also be able to identify changing policies to address identified issues. So if issues keep on coming and they are not being addressed, then you can say that the issue of equality and diversity is not addressed. So if you pick any organization, assess how to address the equality and diversity, and you can look at it by identifying all issues within the organization. Do we have constantly changing our policies to address identified issues? Most issues are identified, but they are just swept under the carpet. Nothing serious comes out of whatever is identified. Again, are they using disciplinary actions with employees if required? Now, if somebody goes against it, how do they deal with it? Do they just brush it over or take action? So these are the areas that you can look at if you want to assess how to address equality and diversity issues. Right, let's look at the next slide. We talk a lot on this one. We have 2.5, which says that analyze methods to review and monitor equality and diversity. How do you analyze methods to review and monitor equality and diversity? The 2.6 part is, I say, will be a task that I would love everybody to go and research and then give me the input next Friday. If people are not traveling for the Easter holidays, we'll discuss it, and then I'll try and give you a sample assignment to guide you, a template, or to make life easier. Most people are commenting that, oh, the healthcare policy template actually helped. So trying to develop a template for this module so that you can have a feel about how I require you to produce the assignment. So what are some of the methods to review and monitor equality and diversity? They are quite simple. What about monitoring the workforce profile? This is so simple. You can actually look at the workforce profile to see whether it's something that can change. Right? To monitor diversity effectively, employers should look at the whole life cycle of the workforce, from recruitment stage to when considering promotion or selecting individuals for redundancy. Sometimes some people are put on redundancy list and they begin to complain that, oh, if it is that person will not. But I have been. So if you look at the workforce of the organization, look at management. How many of them are having any challenging behavior or challenging conditions that actually limit their ability to do the work as any other person? How many of them are in management? Look at the profile from the managing director to the bottom. Do we have any minorities among them? It's easy. It's an easy way of reviewing. You can come to middle level management. You can come to the basic workforce. Look at that. Look at the whole life cycle. I mean, the issue of diversity comes in. Well, when we talk about diversity, we often talk about, oh, race. Oh, there are some Asians in the company. There are some black people in the company. But that is not all. Do we allow people that we classify as disabled? By actual fact, they are just lacking functional abilities. They are able, but maybe their condition makes them, say somebody is disabled. The brain is there, but the person has lost the use of the legs. So it's only functional disability, not brain disability. Do we have some of them in the organization? Look at the profile, right? If you want to review and monitor equality and diversity policy, look at the profile. Most often, all attention goes on race. Oh, there are this number of black people in the organization, top management. We have got some Asians and Indians in the top management. That is not all about workforce profile. Look at all other issues. The important people, people that we need around Do we have people from the gay community there and lesbian community? Are they there? What about the transgenders? What about people with specific needs? Is there any blind mind in the organization? Can they have any role to perform in the organization? Right? What about wheelchair users? Don't they have any role to play? Are we trying to exclude all of them? Are we trying to exclude all of them from the organization? Right? Do you hear me? Do you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you okay. I've had to turn my mic off because it's cold.
Yeah.
Had the fire put on.
Yeah, I saw it that you were not hearing me. So when we talk about monitoring the workforce, often the mind goes straight into race. No, it's not all about race. What about other people? The lesbian and gay LGBT group, do they include them? What about people who are using wheelchair? Is anybody in the organization who is blind? They are blind, but their brains are there. They can use braille. So monitoring workforce profile is very, very important method that we can use to review and monitor equality and diversity. What about training? So in all situations, capturing data about the successful and also unsuccessful individuals help to build up a full picture of how well the business is doing at promoting and maintaining its policies. So look at those who are successful at the top. Does it cut across all profile of people? What about those who are unsuccessful? Is it a minority group who are at the bottom there being unsuccessful? Those are all issues that need to be looked at if you want to analyze methods to review. What about diversity training? Diversity training. It's also quite important. For existing workers, it's important to provide diversity training, which can open up communication and provide an opportunity for employees to learn more about the recruitment methods that are being used. Train people, let them be able to openly discuss, openly, if they have been provided an opportunity for all of them to learn, so that training will not be given to specific people and then we leave the rest out of it. Right? Apart from that, there's a need for reinforcing that decision about hiring based on finding the best candidate for the role and not just an effort to tick the diversity box. In fact, any job on offer, it comes out with the equality and diversity document. So after the job application, you have the equality and diversity thing. It's just a tick box. Maybe some organizations are trying to have those papers down, have all the tick box to cover their backs. But in actual fact, they don't use it. Because if they are using all those papers that is filled on application to tick whether you are black or Asian or gender and all that, if it's just for paperwork and they don't implement it, then they are doing nothing at all. Right? It's also important to relate the benefit of diverse workplace to leadership, right? To ensure they share the firm stand when managing their teams, right? There's a need for us to share the benefit of diverse workplace. It's something that people are not trying to bring in to leadership, for them to understand the need to make sure that everybody is involved in the team. Right. That is the end of our lecture. I want you to take home to analyze, to determine how to reach diverse stakeholder group. Use your organization as a case study. How can you reach diverse stakeholder groups in your organization? It's going to be different for anybody and everybody. So where you work, in your own opinion, how can you reach diverse stakeholder groups, diverse stakeholders, in terms of employees, service users, service providers, and employers, right? Where you are, how can you ensure that management is diverse? Management are one of the stakeholders. Staff are stakeholders. How do you ensure that your staff is diverse? How do you ensure that people who come and receive your services in the office are diverse, right? That is service users. How do you ensure that services that you provide in your office to customers are given to diverse people in the community? These are questions that I want to leave with you. Look at it and then see how 2.6 can be answered. If you can use your job specific, that'll be fine. How can you reach diverse stakeholder groups in your organization? Look at the top management. Management are there. Staff are there. Look at it. Is the staff diverse or just particular group of people? What about people who come in to use your service, your customers in your office? Are they diverse or they are limited to a group of people? The services that you provide, do you provide service to some people only? These are the issues that I want you to think about. And then when we meet on Friday, if you're not going to sink into your holiday mode and not be available, then that's another issue. If you are available, then Friday, we'll discuss that one briefly. People will bring their ideas, and then I'll provide a sample assignment to guide. And then I'll give a briefing on learning outcome 1 for anybody who makes the lecture. Today, too, you are the only person on. So next week, I will run through learning outcome 1 and get all the learning outcomes, and then show you the sample assignment, how you have to write the introduction, how to you tackle each learning outcome in the framework that will be able to help you to finish your assignment in time. If you have any question up to this point, please let me know.
No, I'm fine. Yeah, I think I will be doing next week. It's just a normal working week for me.
Okay.
So I'll be here this time next week, and hopefully I'll be able to get that done. I am really struggling at the moment in the fact that my laptop died.
Oh.
So this is Alan's laptop that I'm on at the moment, which is the only one that I've ever been able to get join me on anyway, so that's good, but getting my work done's been a little bit trickier.
Yeah, I know you've got a technical man besides you, so you don't have any problem.
Yeah, I know he's desperately searching to get me another laptop. He can't bear sharing.
That's fine. So I will advise that you let the technical man download a trial version of IBM SPSS. You've got a trial version which lasts for 15 days. You don't pay nothing. Right, just for trial. So I'm going to design using your questionnaire, I'm going to design a database for you, and then I'll send it by. You can only open it if you have SPSS on your computer. It's a software, so if you don't have SPSS, you can't open.
Do you want to talk to my technical man?
Okay.
What is it? And did you put it on this one? Because I haven't got anything to put it on.
Okay.
Hello, hi Elvis. What is this? What is this? What you want him to download?
Yeah, IBM SPSS.
What is it? A database?
Yeah, the database. Yeah.
Okay.
IBM SPSS. You've got a translation, which is.
And will it run in Windows 8.1?
Oh yeah. At all.
Okay. So where do we download it from?
If you go to the IBM website, you will see IBM SPSS. Click on that and download the 32 bytes, not the 64 bytes. 64 bytes is bigger. You got the 64 bytes, 32. Then download the 32 one. Yeah, we get this for 15 days and that's it.
Is it free?
It's free.
Okay.
So that will enable you to open a database that I will design on your computer.
Okay. All right.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Cheers. All right. Have a nice weekend.
Yeah, you too.
All right.
Enjoy the weather. Bye.
Bye.